It was real fugitives weather when the Prince's party came here about the middle of August. And they did quite a job with flooded rivers and rain. They'd had a rotten night out on the top of a high hill. They spent another miserable night with inadequate shelter. When they got here on the 15th, they were hungry, they hadn't eaten very much, and they shot a stag, had a celebration. Now, they were trying to find Lochiel in case somebody might have got to him with news of a ship. But there was no hope of finding Lochiel, the reason being the enemy troops were searching, so they had to retreat into the mountains, and they spent roughly until the 26th of August. But meantime, the Glenmorrison men were scouting to make contact with the few people who had managed to escape the search. And it was there they managed to get news about the Cluny. They also found out that Lochiel was with Cluny. And then on the 26th, the great news came. They could go to Cluny's hideout 30 miles away on the other side of the mountains to a special cage that he had prepared for the Prince. And there was quite an emotional farewell with the 7 men. The Prince said he would never forget them, and when he came into his own, he would certainly remember them. But meantime, he made a more positive gesture. He gave them 24 guineas, because, as you know, the 7 men were 8. And then away he went across the Lochie to do that hard walk across a mountain pass and across another mountain pass. And what a piece of work it was to get there. And I'm off to find that cage. Well, this is still one of the wildest bits of Scotland today, the heights of Binalda, which drop very steeply down to Loch Ericht. And when the Prince came here, he was in other hideouts at first, but he was taken to a very special one, which is known as Cluny's Cage, not a cave. When I came here first, I had no idea where to look for it. So I had a search around, and I just couldn't find it at first. And the clue to it came in the Cluny charter chest, that it was on the southern spur of Binalda, very remote mountain, also that it was below a rock face, that it overlooked a beautiful bay and had a superb outlook above this bay. The one thing that was missing was it was supposed to be surrounded by holly, a thicket of holly. Well, there's plenty of evidence that there's been trees here, but of course Scotland's become much barer since that time. Cluny Macpherson, the chief of the Macphersons, wanted to make this hideout as good as it could possibly be, because he was frightened for the Prince's health in case he might be compelled to have a very long stay here. The Prince was trying to get to France unsuccessfully. There was no word of a ship. It looked as if it would be impossible to hire one. So the idea here was to contrive something better than a cave. A well-provisioned place, snug inside its cover of holly. This is the downstairs part of the double-storied cage, the servants' quarters. At least a bit of them, because this ledge leads along, and yes, it's there, because the charter chest talks about the bottom compartments for cooking and for sleeping. And up here in the top, built out a floor, and right round it a bower of branches to give cover, shelter, concealment. Well, I wonder what it was like being in here with the bower over you, playing cards, everybody relaxed, plenty to eat. It looked as if they were here for a long time. And then the news came through on the 13th that there was a ship lying at Loch na Ua, the very place where Prince Charlie had landed on the mainland, waiting for him. And Charlie set off that night with the others and did the walk from here right through to the west coast between the 13th and the 19th, 6 days. Now, even a good walker today would find that quite an accomplishment, especially as they had to be very careful because the country still held enemy. But they did a lot of the walking in daylight because they knew that they didn't linger too long. And on the early morning of the 20th of September, they sailed away forever. Charlie sailed away forever anyway. He never saw Scotland again. What he probably didn't realise at the time, though, he intended to come back and carry on the campaign. But he didn't realise that the best days of his life were behind him, namely the 5 months he spent in the heather, because he was always surrounded by loyal people. men who gave everything for him. A lot of them died for him later, including Dr. Cameron, who was here with him, who brought him here. And getting here was a great story too, because they had to cross the Great Glen at its most dangerous time. So the whole story shows Charlie as a heroic character in an emergency. He was a great trooper, but he wasn't a general at all. And in later life, embittered because he wasn't recognised as being a king. That's the thing that really gripped him. His life was spent in ineffectiveness, and yet at the end of his life, if he heard bagpipe music, especially the strains of Lochaber no More, he would break down into tears, thinking of the fate of his brave Highlanders. Maybe the best thing that could have happened to Charlie would have been if he'd stopped a bullet, and then he would have been a legend.